This Solar Titan build will allow you to destroy people in PvP even if you're a PvE main, because this build is super powerful and super easy to use. Throughout this video, I will be going over the aspects, abilities, fragments, and exotics needed to make this build truly amazing. And this video will be perfect timing because Iron Banner just came back yesterday, so you can hop in there and just have a blast. The main goals of this build are to allow you to be very pushy and aggressive and close to medium quarter altercations, and also allow you to put out massive amounts of damage to groups of enemies. But before I get into the video, I would like to introduce myself for those who don't know me already. My name is Apoxy, and welcome back to another one of my Destiny 2 build videos. If you like the video anytime, make sure to leave a like and a comment, and subscribe to my channel for more future videos. Without further ado, let's hop straight into the build. Starting with the exotic armored piece I'm going to be basing this build around, I'm using the Lorelei Splendor Helm. The helmet either obtained from Lost Sectors or Vex Incursion Zones. It has a great armor perk known as Cauterizing Flame. When you are critically wounded with a full class ability energy, or when you cast a barricade, you will create a sunspot at your location that has improved restoration effects. So you either create a sunspot when you cast your barricade, or automatically take your energy from you and cast one when your health is critical. And for those who don't know what sunspots do, when you see them on the ground and you stand on them, your abilities will regenerate faster and your super will drain more slowly while standing in the sunspot. So overall, they are very useful for this build. And then to top that off, we have our first aspect known as Soul Invictus, which works really well with this helmet and the sunspots. Solar ability final blows like Hammer of Soul impacts and defeating scorched targets will create a sunspot. Sunspots apply scorch and deal damage to targets inside. Entering a sunspot will apply restoration, which is really good for us, because that means anytime we cast a barricade or are critically wounded, we'll create a sunspot and we'll begin regenerating health immediately. And also an important thing to know about gaining restoration, this is health that you will gain that cannot be interrupted by taking damage. So someone shooting you will not stop the regenerating health, which is amazing. So yeah, Soul Invictus definitely a must needed aspect. Going back to some exotics you could use if you don't have the Lorelei Splendor helmet, it'd be something like Peacekeepers, which just reload your stud SMG and allow for instant ready, or you can choose to use Peregrine Grebes, which just do bonus damage on airborne shoulder charges. Those are other two great options, but my build is based off Lorelei Splendor helmet for now. But choose whatever fits best for you. Then going back to our aspects, we have our second aspect known as Consecration. While sliding, you activate your charged melee ability to launch a wave of solar energy forward, damaging and scorching targets in front of you as you leap into the air. And also, while you're airborne, you can activate it and slam to the ground and create a second larger wave of damaging solar energy. And if the wave hits a scorched target, they will ignite. So this aspect just gives you some crazy abilities that can kill groups of people with ease. I've gotten a lot of doubles and triple kills with it, but you could definitely wipe a whole team out with it if you got the chance. So basically, if you use the combo together, it'll look like this. Yeah, you're not surviving that. And also, quickly tested it for you guys for the Soul Invictus thing. When you stand in a sunspot and you cast your Hammer Strike super, you'll be able to throw about 10 hammers before your super runs away. And if you don't have Soul Invictus and you're not in a sunspot, you only be able to throw about 8 if you did it continuously. So you basically get a couple extra seconds in your super if you have the Soul Invictus buff active. But yeah, that's all for my aspects. Those two work together greatly for this build. Now quickly moving on to my abilities. For your grenade, you can really run whatever you want. I personally like either Trip Mine, Healing Nade, or Firebolt Grenade. Those are my personal favorites. I like Trip Mine just to be able to wall off areas so people don't push you right away, and they do a crap ton of damage. And then moving on to our solar melee, we use Hammer Strike. After sprinting for a short time, use this melee ability to swing a blazing hammer that scorches your targets and deals damage and a cone behind them. And if your target is defeated by the strike, they will instantly ignite. So definitely a great melee ability. And if you don't want to do that, you can use throwing hammers, but I personally don't see a use for that because at least Hammer Strike allows you to have some momentum if you want to quickly get around the map. I just feel like every Titan needs to have that shoulder charge, especially in PvP, so Hammer Strike's definitely the better option. And then for my movement ability, I personally like Catapult Lift just for the strong initial burst. And then for Barricade, Towering Barricade, because that is the PvP barricade. No one should be using Rally Barricade. Now moving on to our fragments, the first one we have is Ember of Singeing. Your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. So anytime you scorch a target, your abilities will be charging 300% faster, which is an insane rate, and it's definitely worth having on your build, because who doesn't love throwing grenades out as much as possible? And then moving on to our second fragment, we have Ember of Solace. Radiant and Restoration effects applied to you will have an increased duration. And to be more specific, it's just an extra 50% longer duration, which is pretty decent, because you can never get too much health back. So definitely a must-needed fragment, because we're going to be constantly creating sunspots, and at Soul Invictus, it's going to grant us restoration all the time. So Having an extra 50% is really going to help you more than you can imagine. Then moving on to our third fragment, we have Ember of Searing. Defeating scorched targets grants melee energy and creates a fire sprite. If you don't know what a fire sprite is, when you pick it up off the ground, you'll basically just get grenade energy. So anytime you defeat a scorched target, you will get grenade energy and melee energy, so it's just a great aspect to have because you're going to be scorching a lot of people. Getting your grenade and your melee back faster is going to be amazing for your build. And also, that plus 10 recovery is great too. Now, we can talk about our fourth and final fragment, known as the Ember of Tempering. Solar weapon final blows grant you and your allies increased recovery for a short duration, and it stacks up to 3 times. And while this is active, your weapons have increased airborne effectiveness, and your solar weapon final blows create a fire sprite. As you can see here, obviously you have to be using a solar weapon for this to work, so if you're not going to be using a solar weapon, you will have to switch this out. And don't worry, very soon I will be going over some great solar weapons you can use for this build. To be more specific with this perk, whenever you get a solar weapon final blow near an ally within 12.5 meters, that ally will have plus 10 recovery for 8 seconds, and that can stack up to 3 times, so they get up to plus 30 recovery, which is pretty crazy in PvP especially. But yeah, definitely a great fourth and final fragment to have in this build, but if you're not using a solar weapon, you can switch out for something like Ember of Torches. Powered melee attacks against combatants will make you and your nearby allies radiant. Whenever you're radiant, your guns will do more damage to enemies, which is always nice. So that's like a backup fragment if you don't want to use the other one because you're not using solar weapons. But yeah, that's all for my slip class. Now let's hop into my setup. I want to start off by talking about some great solar options you can run in your secondary slot for this build. You first up have the Duality Shotgun, which is a really great exotic shotgun. You also have the Ignis Hammer, which is from Trials of Osiris, and it's a 120 rounds per minute. And then you also have the submachine gun known as Teraba. This weapon is pretty expensive. It costs 240 spoils from the kiosk, but it's one of the best submachine guns in the game, and it absolutely destroys in PvP. And of course, we have the Amit auto rifle. A lot of you know it was broken a little while back, but it's still a very viable auto rifle and is definitely worth using. Well, those are like the 4 ones I've been using with it, but obviously any solar weapon will be great. You just gotta find what's best for you. These are some options. And then to top it all off, I like to use whatever shotgun I want to use that day. I usually either run Reese Walker, Astral Horizon, but I know a lot of you guys like to run Conditional Finality right now, so of course you can pair that with it as well. Very overpowered shotgun. Yeah, those are the weapons I like to use. Now let's move on to my mods. Starting with my helmet, I'm running 2 kinetic targeting mods. Obviously, if you're running a solar weapon for that buff, definitely make these solar targeting mods. Depending on what you're using, obviously mess with these targeting mods. For my gauntlets, I'm running fastball for the increased throw distance of my grenades. Impact induction for causing damage with a melee attack will reduce my grenade cooldown. Since we're going to be using our melee so much, this is just a must-have on this. And then I'm also running a kinetic dexterity just to pull out my weapon faster, especially if I'm using a shotgun on that slot. Probably move this around a little bit. And then for my chest piece, I'm running unflinching kinetic aim just to help with my auto rifle. And then for my legs, I'm running 1 slot of absolution, reduces all my ability cooldowns each time I pick up an overpower. It's a pretty good mod. And then I'm running 2 stacks of enervation just to reduce my grenade cooldown each time I also pick up an overpower. So all 3 of these together are very good. And then for my bond, finally I'm running bomber, reduces your grenade cooldown when I'm using my class ability. So anytime we use our barricade, our grenade's going to come back quicker. Then outreach to reduce my melee cooldown whenever you use our barricade. And we have Reaper, which is one of the best mods. After you use your class ability, your next weapon final blow will spawn an overpower. And then that overpower you can use to proc all your other mods. So yeah, those are all the mods I like to use for this. They all work pretty nice together. Obviously, you switch them around to your preference based on which weapons you're using or how you want to play. But you can either copy me exactly or customize it yourself. It's fully up to you. Yeah, that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching and you decided to try this build out in PvP. Iron Banner's out right now, so make sure you go and destroy in it and let me know how it is in the comments below. Until next time, my name's Apoxy. Peace.